Floodplain ordinance. First reading.
We're going to do it.
Okay, I have to read the first two paragraphs. Upton County Floodplain Ordinance. An ordinance establishing a floodplain area and requiring all contractors, persons, partnerships, businesses, and corporations to obtain a permit for development and the construction, substantial improvement, or relocation of any building or structure, providing for certain minimum standards for construction within the floodplain area, and setting forth special procedures for submission and approval of plans, and establishing penalties for any person who fails to comply with the requirements or provisions of this ordinance. Authority and purpose. The provisions of this ordinance have been prepared with the intention of meeting the requirements of Section 60.3D of the National Flood Insurance Program, National Floodplain Insurance Act of 1968, Public Law 91-152, amended by the Congress of the United States through the 15th of February 1975, West Virginia Code 7-1-3B, 7-1-3N, and 7-1-3KK. This is our first reading. I need a motion to accept the first reading. I'm sure I do. I do not.
So moved.
Motion's been made to accept the floodplain ordinance for first reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion is carried.
At the meeting that we had with Mr. Tennant, what he said was we could have the first reading today. He would still accept comments, and those would be discussed at the next reading. And if there are any changes made, then we would have to go back to the first reading again. I believe what he said was we only have to have one reading. But that's what he indicated to us, that comments can still be made and will be considered.
When did he say this? Because I thought he told Mr. Sandora that there would be no more comments, no more changes. That's what we heard. That's what we were told.
We had a meeting with our council, and we discussed various issues, and he explained various issues. No decisions were made. He said he was going to rewrite, and thus we have this reading and this document. And once again, if you want to make comments, make the comments, and they will be considered. And then at the next meeting, it's my understanding that he will be here. I
don't understand that. Sorry.
That was my understanding.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. I think he was first. Go ahead.
Is there a deadline that you're trying to meet with the floodplain and say, just say by July 15th this will be passed and things can move on at that point, or is this still open-ended?
Well, we were told that we had to move swiftly because the judge said we had to move and act on this. Am I right here or wrong? We had to get it done like pronto. I guess the judge gave us, I don't know what the timeline was. I never did hear.
Excuse me.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
At the meeting that we had on the Wednesday evening that lasted for 7 hours, I believe that Mr. Sneed indicated that FEMA was saying we needed to get this approved, and he was, I may be mistaken, but I thought he said something like 3 weeks.
That's what I heard him say.
So, that's what was said.
And that was from that Wednesday,
Yeah.
like 3 weeks, okay.
But he never says anything,
Did he ever submit the letter of complaint? He said he had a letter on his desk from FEMA wanting him to give you a letter saying, please get with the process. But he said he had deliberately withheld giving you that letter. Has he officially given you
I've got that letter. I got that letter, I think, yesterday. I believe. Yesterday or the day before I read that letter, yes. Go ahead.
I'm going to ask this question. I think I've asked all but you. Why don't you go ahead and approve the National FEMA regulations as being the Doddridge County floodplain ordinance and just be done with this? I mean, it's already written, it's already legal. It contains the part that you need to give notice. It would be so much easier on you. This document, you've got one side that's looking at it through the eyes of drilling and restricting drilling, but then you have other people who are looking at it. It's going to hit me as a developer. It's going to hit me as a citizen of this county. FEMA has already, with the new floodplain maps, I have been told, taken 20% of our floodplain and said, nothing's going to happen. Okay? As a citizen who wants to use her property that she has paid for, I don't like to see things like I'm going to have a contractor to do anything on my property that I want done. And you find that on page 33. Okay? I'm perfectly capable of doing my own work. The site plan criteria is very, very oriented to maps and stuff like that. If you're just doing a little bit of work on your property, you shouldn't have to have this.
Like putting gravel down?
Like cleaning up the road.
Yeah.
Did Mr. Tennant, somebody addressed that in our big long meeting the other night about this permit's going to pertain not only to gas and oil, but
Right.
to property owners.
Yeah.
Right, it's in
We
here.
asked about separating that, and that can't be.
Why?
It's one and it's one for all. Whatever it is, it is.
Okay,
Does
you're
the county not have a building ordinance?
Wait a minute.
okay.
Excuse me for a minute.
It refers this back to West Virginia Code 21-1176, and whenever I've asked what that is, I didn't have time to look it up myself.
Okay.
Who knows what that is, because it's just a number in here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then you go back to the alteration of or relocation of a stream. Now, I know whenever I have done work on our stream, we had to go to the Army Corps of Engineers and to the West Fork water people. That's already covered by them. Why on earth is it in this document?
Well,
I mean, in other words, if I have to clean out my stream again, I have to go to them, I have to go to the Army Corps of Engineers, and now I have to come to Dan. Because it's part of this document. Why is it here? Why is it needed? It's already judged elsewhere.
maybe Dan can answer that. I can't. Go ahead and speak.
No, I was just, my question was, I thought the county, Mr. Tennant said at the other meeting that in his county, there is no building ordinance. There's just the one ordinance that covers land that's in a floodplain or outside the floodplain. My question was, does Doddridge County have a separate building ordinance? Why does someone who wants to remodel their house up here on top of the hill have to go get a floodplain permit? That makes no sense.
Okay, there is a state ordinance, and if the county, the way I understand it, if the county doesn't have a building ordinance, it falls back on the state, on state law. The same way with your subdivision laws, Doddridge County doesn't have a subdivision law, so it falls back to the state. whatever's in the state code.
Who was first? I see hands.
Well, under this document that I gave you, the exemptions for hydraulic fracturing under United States federal law, if there can be two separate laws, one giving the industry free rein, and then one that I have to follow, how come there can't be two separate ordinances, one for the industry and one for us citizens?
I asked that question, and I didn't get no answer from the attorney. I asked that question.
Well, another thing I'd like you to keep in mind is the only reason the industry wants to develop in the floodplain is because it's easier access for them and less costly. That's the only reason. Those horizontals go out a mile or more. They could put that well a mile from the floodplain and still get their gas. You need to keep that in mind before you give them free rein.
If you try to clean out a stream, you have to go to the Corps of Engineers and get a permit from me. That you have to do.
You had stated that there's no way to separate industry from private landowners, and I can understand that. But is there a, let's say I want to put an 18-inch culvert in, is there a way to ramp it up to the point where, okay, you can put up to a 24-inch culvert in without having to get this approved, or move X amount of dirt, 20,000 tons of dirt, cubic yards of dirt, before I need to get things approved within the floodplain? That would kind of separate out the industrial from the private. Is that anything that can be added into this, or?
I don't know. Ask Mr. Wells. An answer to that, Dan?
I'm not sure on that either. If that sets a lower standard than what they require, no, we couldn't do it. And it very possibly would. So my gut reaction was no, I don't believe we did to do something.
Okay. Yeah.
But, I can't say for that.
Okay. Linda?
Yes, I still don't understand why we can't have more than two choices. Either we have to deal with these laws that are put in place. I think they should be put in place for a commercial building and not the residents that live there. I mean, we should be able to put gravel in our driveway. Can I dig I think I'm setting in a floodplain now since they've changed the thing. Can I do a garden? Do I have a right to till my garden and put my garden in? I have a greenhouse setting there. I mean, come on.
Does she, Dan? He knows more about this than what we like.
Isn't this rather ridiculous?
Everybody there on that. Now, I don't know if that's something that could be done in conjunction with the floodplain orders. I have noticed where, like in Harrison County, where they have adopted the state code, they have exempted agriculture from it. Whether that is something that could possibly be done on the floodplain, I don't know.
And it should be living. I mean, we should be able to put gravel in our driveway. Gravel in our driveway is not going to be like putting a giant pad in the middle of a floodplain. There's a difference, and I think that should be made clear, and the people who have lived here all, taking care of their homes and everything like that should not be held to the same standards as commercial development in the floodplains. That's a completely different thing. Completely different, and it should be made clear in this thing so that we can live our lives and use our property and with relative ease and not be held to the same standards that this is. There's a reason for really strict standards with commercial building and this kind of stuff. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to live in our homes. And I mean, how many people have had, I've driven through town after a flood and seen people with their cars just completely inside and out covered with mud. We're supposed to strap our cars down in our driveway. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Ralph.